Hi everyone, I'm your host Prabjot Paul Singh, a former bureau chief of the Tribune. Today I'm going to recall some of the events which happened in 1984. It was a very crucial year in the history of our country. Going to talk about October 31st, the day the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, was assassinated. I was working with the Tribune as a crime reporter. And we used to have early in the morning a meeting with our editor-in-chief, Mr. Prem Bhatia. Since the story about assassination broke around 8 in the morning, and those days there was only All India Radio, no Doordarshan, no TV channels, no social media, and even telephony was very limited. So we used to meet at Mr. Bhatia's house at 10 in the morning, and when we all went there, so we had very sketchy information about attack on Mrs. Indira Gandhi and how it happened and what was her condition. So when we assembled for the meeting, Mr. Bhatia came and he said it's a sad news, though she has been taken to Indian Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi and no final word has come on her condition. So we should immediately plan out in the city, take reactions, do stories, and maybe we can come out with a special pullout. So accordingly, the meeting, which was very brief that day, we all went out. I went around the city, talking to people, finding out how they were reacting to the developments. And then I headed for Maloya village, the village to which one of the main assassins, Byan Singh, belonged. It was virtually turned into a police cantonment with Punjab police, Chandigarh police, and paramilitary forces already there. And contingents of Delhi police were also coming in. Naturally, all newspapers and other channels, their representatives were also there. And my immediate task was to find out more about Byan Singh, his family background, and whatever details I could get from the police officers present there. Since they were all like us, they were far away from the spot, from the scene, and they had very limited information as we all had. Anyways, talking to the family was a big help. I immediately got on to Mr. Samsher Singh, eldest brother of Byan Singh. He belonged to Judicial Service of PCS. He was a magistrate himself and a very well educated man, very well learned man. And his father, Byan Singh's father, was a weaver, Suchar Singh, old man. And when we went there, he was on a handloom weaving cloth. He was appalled by the developments. He didn't know what to do and how to react. Byan Singh's other family members, his brothers, they were all shocked. They didn't know how to react, and they were not sure whether they'll be taken in custody, whether they'll be taken away, and what will happen to them. And it was on the same day, for the second time in the year, censorship was imposed. In the evening, when we returned to office, we were told censorship has come, and we had to file our copies through censors. So much so that when new Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, who had taken over, made a speech to the nation, the entire speech was censored. In the Tribune, we had 3 censors, one from field publicity and 2 from public relations and education department. And in the evening, when Mr. Prem Bhatia, our editor-in-chief, walked into the newsroom, he asked chief sub-editor what was happening to the newspaper. He was in a very pensive mood. He said, "Sir, we can't bring out the paper." He said, "Why?" So he told him, because the censors have even censored Prime Minister's speech. And this got Mr. Bhatia very furious. He said, "Okay, let me talk to Chief Commissioner." So we put a call through to Chief Commissioner, Mr. K. Banerjee, And Mr. Bhatia spoke to him. And he said, Mr. Banerjee, you want me to shut down the paper? He said, no, Mr. Bhatia, what happened? He said, you have sent some censors, they don't know what is censorship. They have even censored Prime Minister's speech. Can I bring out a paper without Prime Minister's speech to the nation? He said, no, sir, no, this is not possible. Let me talk to them. And then he talked to them, Mr. Banerjee, to the censors, and then speech was cleared. And subsequently, many of the news stories which were held back, which were censored earlier, were cleared for publication that day. And now, since then, or after that day, all the censored stories, we left spaces in the newspaper, say on page 1, inside page, wherever, would say censored and leave a blank space. And this is how the second spell of censorship had come and affected us. Earlier, it was after Operation Blue Star. Similar thing had happened, and we faced first spell of censorship. And again, in the same year, 1984, it was second censorship. So next few days, Maloya was my destination. Every day I was going there, talking to family, talking to policemen, talking to other people. And then I started digging out information about Byan Singh's past. Where did he go for his schooling? Where did he go for his college education? What subjects did he choose? How was he like a man? How many friends he had in Chandigarh, because he belonged to Chandigarh. So all these things were very interesting for me, and I continued doing my research. And from time to time, I would put up a story in the Tribune on the developments. And after a couple of weeks, I talked to my editor chief, Mr. Prem Bhatia. I told him I have so much of information, and if you agree, I can put up a complete, comprehensive story for the Sunday reading. He appreciated the idea. He said, okay, you write and show it to me. So I prepared a draft, took it to him, and he was very happy to see it, the way I had conducted my investigations. And he said, but whatever you say, how do we corroborate those things? So I told him I have certain evidences, certain very, very reliable sources. He said, okay, it looks very credible. Go ahead. And it was decided it will be published on 24th of November, 1984, almost 3 weeks after the assassination. So on 22nd of November, went out the announcement in the main paper. On Sunday, the main article will be Profile of an Assassin by Prabjot Singh. And it was to go in all the 3 publications, the Tribune, the Dainik Tribune, the Hindi version, and Punjabi Tribune, the Punjabi version of the Tribune. And I was very happy my story is going as a lead story in the Sunday reading. And on the evening of 22nd, when I came back to office, the chief sub-editor, Mr. Samuel Banerjee, he said, Prab, bad news for you. I said, sir, what happened? He says somebody's gone to court and has got interim order against your story. So we have to stop your story. It can't go unless court vacates that interim injunction. So it was almost 9:30 at night. And I said, have they served us any notice? He said, yes, somebody has just come half an hour ago and given us this notice. So here is a notice. So I said, okay. I immediately talked to Mr. Bhatia. I said, this is what has happened. He said, yes, Samuel Banerjee told me. So he said, what are you going to do now? I said, sir, I will try, get this stay vacated. He says, you have only one day, tomorrow. And they have given the date for a couple of months from now. I said, don't worry, I'll try my best. If we can get the stay vacated, we'll publish it. Otherwise, we have no choice. He said, okay, my support is with you. So that night, I sat with one of my colleagues, Mr. Gurinderjeet Singh. He was a sub-editor and on the night duty. So we went through the plaint, the application some lawyer had filed against me, and the points he had raised. So we sat and drafted a reply. And in the meanwhile, I also talked to a lawyer, a good friend of mine, Mr. Balwant Singh Guliani. He was also standing counsel for SGPC those days. So he said, "Don't worry, come to me in the morning at 6 and we'll give a reply and we'll tell the court it's an urgent hearing and the court must hear this petition because it's time bound." So at night, we prepared a rough draft, went back home, and decided to meet at Mr. Guliani's home early in the morning at 6. So we met there, and Mr. Guliani saw our draft. He was very happy. He says, "It's a very nicely made draft, but I have to give it a legal color." So he took that draft from us. He called his steno and made some changes, gave it legal tone, and asked us to reach the court by 9:30, 10. So we went back home, had a quick bath, quick bite, and came back to the court. And it was in the court of Chief Judicial Magistrate K.K. Sharma. And he requested the court, this is an urgent case, this must be heard, and this relates to the important development of the land, and it's about the assassination of the Prime Minister, and this must go. This Tribune is a very respectable newspaper, oldest paper, most credible, and it's an apolitical. It has no motive in this story. It is just to educate people and tell people the reality. So he said, "Okay, you call the other party, the lawyer." Mr. Anil Sharma was the lawyer who had made that petition. So court asked him to appear, and he appeared. So argument started, and they continued till the court broke for lunch. And before the judge went away, he asked our lawyer, can he see the copy of the article, which we are going to publish tomorrow? So he asked me, I said, yes, I can bring a copy from my office. So he said, go, bring it. I went back to my office and I got a galley proof of my story. And then when I came back, the judge was still in his dining room, and Mr. Guliani and me went there and showed him the copy. He went through the copy, and then when the court resumed, arguments again continued for a while, half an hour, and then the court decided, yes, this article can go. So we were delighted. He allowed it, and it was published next morning as a lead article in the Tribune, in Punjabi Tribune, and Dainik Tribune. And ultimately, we were very happy because this had cleared the first legal adjudication, and subsequently, Government of India constituted a special investigation team and to investigate the case and everything. When finally the Supreme Court judgment came in Indira Gandhi assassination case, it was such a wonderful feeling for all of us in the Tribune that the court mentioned our article by name. This profile of an assassin published in the Tribune on 24th of November 1984 by Prabhjot Singh, and 3 paras were written about it. So normally they say newspapers writings are, the courts, they don't take cognizance of newspaper writings as evidence. But this article was accepted by the apex court, the highest court of the country, and the court even mentioned my name, the name of the story, name of the newspaper, and the date, and appreciated this piece, this investigation by a young journalist had such a wonderful information which could have helped investigators to come out with their story much earlier than they took. So that was the time when, as a young journalist, on those times when things were very, very trying, very difficult because of militancy and assassination of a prime minister. So such a support from the court in form of appreciation as a part of the judgment was a great relief for us and we were grateful that way because people supported us, the Tribune readers supported us, and ultimately the article had the approval of the court.